What if I told you that the most important moment in a trader's career isn't the first big win or the first devastating loss, but the quiet moment of total surrender? We fight the market, armed with indicators and complex strategies, trying to impose our will on its chaos. We believe the path to success is to be smarter, faster, to find the perfect formula that can solve the puzzle. But what if the only way to win is to stop fighting altogether? This is the greatest paradox of the trading journey. While we spend years searching for the Holy Grail, the perfect indicator, the secret algorithm, that relentless search for an external solution is the very thing preventing us from finding the answer. What if the enemy we're trying to outsmart on the charts is actually the person staring back at us from the screen's reflection? This is the story of the moment of enlightenment in trading. The profound psychological shift from trying to predict the future to simply managing the present. And today we will follow the journey of Arthur, an engineer who tried to build a perfect machine to solve the market, and the spectacular failure that led him to his greatest breakthrough. The realization that the signals for success aren't on the chart, but within the self. The almost perfect machine. Our story begins not in a bustling metropolis, but in a quiet, solitary house nestled in the vast green highlands of Scotland. This was the domain of Arthur, a former systems engineer in his early 40s who had left a brilliant career in the corporate world to become a full-time Forex trader. He was not a typical trader, he was an architect. With his engineering background, Arthur approached the market with a clear, logical framework. The market is a complex system, and every system has rules that can be decoded and modeled. He believed the failure of most traders stemmed from emotional decision-making and a lack of mathematical precision. He would be different. He would build the perfect machine to conquer the market. For 3 full years, he dedicated himself to this goal. His home office resembled a mission control room more than a trading den. Multiple monitors displayed complex data streams, he coded his own proprietary indicators, and he developed an incredibly sophisticated expert advisor EA, an automated trading strategy. His system consisted of more than 15 indicators, 20 conditions for entry, and a complex risk management algorithm. Everything was designed to filter out human emotion and randomness completely. But the results were maddeningly frustrating. He was stuck at break-even. His system would work brilliantly for a few weeks, generating beautiful profits, only for a slight change in market conditions to cause it to fall apart, giving back all the gains in a rapid, brutal drawdown. He felt like he was fighting a hydra. Every time he solved one problem, 2 new ones grew in its place. The hunt for the Holy Grail. Arthur never gave up. He was convinced that he was just one variable away from perfection. He became obsessed with optimizing his system. Perhaps if I add a volatility filter, or maybe the exit algorithm needs refinement. I might need one more indicator to confirm momentum. His journey became an endless hunt for the Holy Grail. He bought expensive courses, joined forums for quantitative traders, and spent 16 hours a day backtesting and tweaking his code. This period of his life was a suspenseful cycle of soaring hope, followed by crushing disappointment, a tense and thrilling narrative of a man chasing a secret formula he believed must exist. The audience, like Arthur, is led to believe that the next tweak, the next adjustment, will finally be the one that solves the puzzle. In-depth documentary, The Illusion of Certainty, and the Siren's Song of Complexity. Arthur's journey is a reflection of an intellectual trap that ensnares many of the brightest minds who enter trading. It is a hunt for a non-existent prize, driven by the fundamental human need for certainty and control in an environment that is inherently uncertain. 1. The nature of the market, a complex adaptive system. The most fundamental error in Arthur's engineering framework was viewing the market as a static machine. In reality, the financial market is a complex adaptive system. It is not composed of fixed physical laws, but of millions of adaptive agents. humans and algorithms, who are constantly interacting with and reacting to each other's behavior. A strategy that works today may be useless tomorrow, precisely because other agents have learned of it and adapted to it. Trying to build a perfect system to beat the market is akin to trying to build the perfect submarine to catch a school of fish that can change its swimming pattern in a nanosecond. The system itself changes as you try to measure it. 2. Analysis, paralysis, and apophenia. Arthur's quest for more data and more variables inevitably leads to a state known as analysis paralysis. When there's too much conflicting information, making a decision becomes impossible. The brain freezes. Furthermore, the human brain has a powerful tendency to see patterns in random data, a phenomenon known as apophenia. By adding more and more indicators, Arthur wasn't necessarily discovering true correlations. He was likely creating illusory relationships in his own mind, mistaking randomness for a pattern. The Siren's Song of Complexity. Our brains have a bias to believe that what is complex is also better or superior. A trading system with 20 indicators feels more authoritative and smarter than a simple system that uses only basic support and resistance lines. In reality, simpler systems are often more robust and resilient to changing market conditions. Complexity becomes a siren's song, luring traders like Arthur away from simple, powerful first-order principles and onto the jagged rocks of a complex, fragile failure. The expert problem. Arthur's past success as an engineer became his disadvantage in trading. Success in a deterministic field like engineering builds ego and a belief that one can solve any problem with more logic and more knowledge. He was unfamiliar with an environment where logic alone is insufficient and where the admission, "I don't know," is the beginning of true wisdom. His expertise in one domain created a dangerous blind spot in another. The final bet. After months more of relentless work, Arthur finally created it. System version 5.0, his masterpiece. It was complex, elegant, and according to his exhaustive backtests, it was nearly perfect. He was utterly convinced this was the holy grail he had been searching for. He saw a perfect buy signal according to his System 5.0 on the CAD-USD pair. Every one of his 15 indicators flashed green. All 20 of his entry conditions were met. It was, in his mind, a 100% certainty. Fueled by this conviction, he did something he had never done before. He increased his risk size to 5% of his account. This isn't a gamble, he told himself. This is a mathematical certainty. The brutal truth. He entered the trade, and for the first hour, everything went according to plan. But then a small black swan event occurred. An unexpected off-the-cuff statement from a central bank official in Canada sent the market moving in the exact opposite direction of everything his system had calculated. Arthur sat and watched in disbelief. He refused to close the position. Impossible! My system didn't account for this, but it will correct itself. He trusted his machine more than the reality unfolding on his screen. The price plummeted, crashing through his stop-loss with brutal force, handing him the single biggest loss of his trading year. This loss didn't just damage his account. It shattered his entire worldview. His perfect machine had been destroyed by a single uncontrollable variable. His engineering approach had completely and utterly failed. The moment of enlightenment. Arthur didn't touch his computer for a week. He spent his time walking the quiet, misty highlands of Scotland. He left the data, the charts, and everything else behind. He was left with only himself and his failure. And in that silence, free from the noise of information, he had his aha moment. He wasn't fighting the market. He was trying to force the market to fit his model. He wasn't trying to trade. He was trying to be right. He realized with a chilling and profound clarity that the job of a trader is not to predict the future. It is to manage the uncertainty of the present. He didn't need a more complex system. He needed a simpler mind, In that moment, his entire paradigm shifted. He stopped looking for answers outside and began, for the first time, the journey inward. In-depth documentary, The Psychology of a Probabilistic Mindset. Arthur's enlightenment is the transition from a deterministic mindset, everything has a definite cause and effect, to a probabilistic one. Everything is a matter of probabilities. This is the single most important psychological shift that separates professional traders from amateurs. Part A, the acceptance of uncertainty. The core of this new mindset is the deep, fundamental acceptance that in the financial markets there are no certainties. No matter how perfect your setup or how brilliant your analysis, there is always a chance that any given trade can be a loser. Professional traders do not try to eliminate this uncertainty, which is impossible. They learn to accept and work with it. They treat trading much like an insurance company treats its policies, or a professional poker player treats each hand. They know they might lose on any single instance, but if they consistently apply a strategy that has a positive statistical advantage, an edge, they will be profitable over the long run. Part B, redefining the edge. The amateur searches for an edge that is a predictive tool. The professional understands that a true edge is simply a small statistical advantage that only manifests over a large sample size of trades. For example, your edge might be a strategy that wins only 55% of the time, but has an average risk-reward ratio of 1 to 2. Over 10 trades, you could easily lose 6 or 7 times and feel like your strategy is failing. But over 1,000 trades, the mathematics of positive expectancy will ensure you are a winner. The professional trusts the math over their short-term feelings. Part C, the silent signals of transformation. The shift to a probabilistic mindset manifests through several silent signals in a trader's psychology and behavior. Emotional neutrality to outcomes. You genuinely feel the same after a planned win or a planned loss, because you know that the outcome of any single trade is statistically irrelevant. A shift in focus from entries to risk management. You spend more time and mental energy on your position sizing, stop-loss placement, and trade management than you do on searching for the perfect entry signal. The disappearance of hope and fear. These emotions, which thrive on uncertainty about the outcome, are replaced by a calm acceptance of the statistical process. A new definition of a good day. A good day is no longer a profitable day. A good day is a day where you followed your plan flawlessly, regardless of the P and L. The feeling of lightness. Releasing the immense psychological burden of needing to be right on every trade is incredibly freeing. It reduces stress and allows for clearer thinking. Part D, the battle of the brain. System 1 versus System 2. This entire journey is the story of training your brain. The desire to find patterns, to believe in certainty, and to react emotionally is driven by our fast, intuitive, and often flawed System 1 thinking. The professional trader's mindset is a product of building and strengthening their System 2 thinking, the slow, analytical, and effortful part of our brain. The years of frustration Arthur experienced was the long, difficult process of System 2, battling for control over the impulsive, pattern-seeking nature of System 1. The moment of enlightenment was the moment System 2 finally won the war. Demolition and Reconstruction. Arthur returned to his house in Scotland and did something remarkable. He deleted his entire complex system 5.0. He removed every single indicator from his charts, leaving only blank candlestick charts and simple hand-drawn support and resistance lines. He then began to write a new trading plan. But this time, 90% of the plan was not about technical strategy. It was about rules for managing himself. I will only trade the simplest, most obvious setups. I will always accept my 1% risk per trade. I will review my state of mind in my journal every day, not just my P&L. The true victory. The final scene of our story. Arthur is sitting at his now simple desk. He sees an entry signal that matches his new, simpler plan. He enters the trade. He places his stop loss. He places his take profit. And he closes the trading platform and turns to look out the window at the vast, unpredictable, and beautiful Scottish landscape. We don't know the outcome of that trade, and that is the entire point. Because for the new Arthur, it no longer matters. He surrendered to the uncertainty of the market, and in that surrender, he found the only true control he ever had: control over himself. He looks out at the vast wilderness with a calm smile. The smile of a man who stopped trying to be a god and found peace in simply being a man. And that was Arthur's journey. A story that teaches us that enlightenment in trading is not the discovery of a perfect strategy, but the acceptance that such a thing does not exist. It is the shift from trying to control the external world to the practice of controlling our internal one. I want to invite you to share your story in the comments below. Have you ever had your own moment of enlightenment in your trading journey? What was the turning point that made you stop searching for a holy grail and start looking into your own mind? Finally, if Arthur's story was helpful to you today, or if it made you think your like is the greatest encouragement for us to continue creating this kind of in-depth content, and so that you don't miss out on the next in-depth documentary and trading psychology analysis, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. For today, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.